Welcome to the second section of the Employee Wellbeing Stress Risk Assessment Workshop. We are going to be talking a bit more specifically now about the work-related stress risk assessment. So with this stress risk assessment, we're really encouraging you as managers to take a proactive approach to work-related stress. And this is as recommended by the HSE, CIPD and NICE. So as work-related stress is on the increase, it is important that staff, and particularly managers, at all levels of the organisation are equipped to recognise and intervene as early as possible. So reflecting on the previous diagrams of pressure and stress, we want to get there before an employee reaches burnout. This slide demonstrates some of the many benefits of proactively managing stress in the workplace. So you tend to see reduced symptoms of poor mental and physical health, fewer injuries, less illness and lost time, lower sick leave usage, absences and turnover, increased productivity and greater job satisfaction, and engagement in work, reduced cost to the employer, and then improved employee health and community well-being. We understand that with your workloads, it may seem daunting to introduce stress risk assessments. However, I hope you can see here the benefits for you, your organisation and your staff members. The Employee Wellbeing Service, with advice from clinical psychologists and the health and safety team, have developed a new, more user-friendly stress risk assessment tool. It is based on the Health and Safety Executive Standards approach, and it is a questionnaire to measure risk of work-related stress, not stress itself. So we aren't requiring you to diagnose anyone with stress, but rather to include a risk assessment in your approach to managing stress in your department. The Health and Safety Executive recognises 6 factors as contributing to work-related stress, and these are demands, control, support, relationships, role, and change. This would be a good time to pause the presentation and to find a copy of the Stress Risk Assessment Tool and Guide. You can find these in the link in the description of the video for you to look through. And the risk assessment can be downloaded as an editable file for you to fill in. So talking about this risk assessment more in depth, as you can see, it provides an overview of stress, your responsibilities as a manager, and stages of the risk assessment process, which I will be going through shortly. The risk assessment itself shows the 6 stresses we mentioned earlier and the columns to go through, with the specific causes of workplace stress identified within each category, and existing workplace support and adjustments already in place. It can be helpful to consider what has already been provided and what can the employee do to utilise what is already available to them. In the further action to be taken column, here you can make an action plan of the steps that you and the staff member need to take to improve the situation, and then set a review date. The Stress Risk Assessment Guide provides lots of useful suggestions for each of the 6 categories of stresses. So with this proactive approach in mind, when would you conduct a work-related stress risk assessment? So some useful times could be when you believe or notice that an individual or team are likely to be suffering from work-related stress. So if you notice any of the signs that we've mentioned previously, it could be useful to start there. It could also be useful to do it annually as part of the preparation for the PADR or the values-based appraisal. It could also be useful to do it when planning for an organisational change or at a staff member's request, although it is important to mention that it's always the staff member's choice if they want to do it. And then finally, it can be useful to do it on a return to work after a stress-related absence, although it is important to mention that it is a proactive approach in an ideal world, so ideally it would be prior to the return to work that we'd be doing it in most situations. So looking at the stages of the process involved in completing a stress risk assessment, it firstly starts with preparation. So in the preparation phase, it's important that you get a good sense of how to use the work-related stress tool. So having a look over the aid prior to completing it. It can also be useful to reflect on the person and anticipate what they might be coming in with, and also reminding yourself of any resources available for later signposting. This preparation phase is also useful to prepare the staff member, so giving them the leaflet and encouraging them to have a proper think about what they want to discuss. And it's really important to give them notice for this, as it can be quite hard to convey and summarise issues without some prior notice to prepare. And it also encourages the staff member to take an active part in their stress risk assessment, which is crucial. And as a staff member, they also need to take responsibility for their experience at work. And this is a good way of setting that. Next, in the discussion part, it can be good to cover each topic, even if it doesn't seem relevant, as something unexpected may come up. So going through each of the 6 categories in turn. And in this part, it's really important that you be empathetic, listen and acknowledge, and not trying to fix problems straight away. Just hear them out. Next, in the action plan, it can be useful to think about suggestions from the guide to prompt the conversation and to think about priorities. So what are the really important things to change? It's also important to make sure that you set a review period and have clear goals, as this means that you can show that you've held up your end and make sure that they stick to theirs. As again, the individual has responsibility and is accountable for playing their part in helping their situation. And then finally, having a follow-up and seeing if they have different needs for support this time around, as things can change. And promising and actually having this follow-up can help build trust and ongoing problem solving. Now that you've learned about how to use the work-related stress risk assessment tool, I'm going to give you the opportunity to work through a case study to practice using it. I'm going to read the case study below. So Emma has reported that she's experiencing work-related stress. Following a restructure in the department, a change in her job duties, this has led to an increased pressure and high levels of anxiety. Emma feels that she's struggling to keep up with the workload and to maintain positive working relationships with her colleagues. She feels physically and emotionally exhausted, and a discussion with her manager has led to the completion of the work-related stress tool. So now have a think about what control measures you would suggest if you were Emma's manager. It might be good to stop the recording and give yourself a good 5 to 10 minutes or so to think about how you would go about this, and feel free to use the guide for ideas. So have a go, What are the risks identified? What are the priorities? Maybe come up with an action plan. What is an appropriate review period? How will you know if things have improved or worsened? And does the staff member need any other support or signposting? There are many directions that you can take with this and different aspects which you may have focused on, but here I'm going to run through some examples which follow the 6 categories related to Emma's situation. So starting with demands, Emma seems overwhelmed by her job duties, so you could help her to prioritise which tasks are the most pressing. Next, with control, Emma might have had a lot of changes that she had no control over. Can you ask Emma to explain how she would like to do the job her way whilst meeting the demands? Perhaps working from home or flexible working might help with the sense of control where possible. Next, related to change, there has been a big organisational change, so making sure that the team have regular meetings to increase team cohesion and considering whether Emma would like to have some more training for her new roles. Related to her role, checking that Emma is confident about what her new role now is and where she fits in within the department. Related to relationships, encouraging regular team meetings to air issues arising, perhaps even a team work-related stress risk assessment, and checking that Emma knows where she fits in with her colleagues so that she is clear about what her role is and what others' roles are. And then finally, with support, thinking about if you can provide some mentorship, some extra one-to-ones, and making sure that Emma knows about other resources, such as the Employee Wellbeing Service. We hope that you found this online workshop useful and that you feel you would know how to approach a work-related stress risk assessment a bit better. We're going to end by briefly talking about the resources that are available to access. This slide shows how to access the stress risk assessment and aid. So if you follow Employee Wellbeing Service page and then click on Employee Wellbeing Service Resources and Staff Wellbeing Information for Managers and Staff. In terms of signposting, the Employee Wellbeing Service also has many resources that we would recommend that you spend some time looking at what's available. The Employee Wellbeing Service itself can also provide, if appropriate, counselling, resources and guided self-help. Guided self-help is a new intervention for the service whereby people work through CBT-style workbooks with the support of an assistant psychological therapy practitioner. Although you can signpost the Employee Wellbeing Service, it is important that employees make their own self-referrals.